historic same-sex marriage judgment will be pronounced today. The Supreme Court of India will deliver its much-anticipated judgment on petitions seeking legal recognition for same-sex marriage. A five-judge bench headed by Chief Justice of India DY Chandrachud, Sanjay Kishan Kaul, Ravindra Bhat, Hima Kohli and PS Narishma insisted that it was only looking at the legal aspect of the Special Marriage Act and the Foreign Marriage Act and not recognizing non-heterosexual marriages. My colleague Sunil Prabhu is joining us live on the broadcast. But before that, let's listen in to one of the lawyers of one of the petitioners in this case.
The queer community, the LGBTQIA plus community has struggled for a long time. And many of those struggles have been successful with determination, with huge allyship, with democratic participation. The right to marriage is a very important one because it means that the children of these marriages are not branded different from other children. So we really hope and pray that this is recognized by our court.
Sunil Prabhu joining us live on the broadcast now. And Sunil, it's been a long journey for the LGBTQIA community. And, this is going to create a momentous change in the country. It's going to change how families are defined in the country. So tell us, what do we expect? And it's coming at about 10:30 a.m. this morning.
That's right. We'll have to see whether it's a unanimous judgment. I think that's the most critical point. Or is there differing judgments? That's something to watch out for. Having said that, as you're well aware, if India does give, and Supreme Court does give the go-ahead to legalize, same-sex marriages, we'll join in Asia. Only two countries so far, Taiwan as well as Nepal, have recognized same-sex, apart from, of course, many Western countries. And it's in that backdrop, it will be a historic and a momentous decision, as you say, for the largest democracy in this country. There have been huge objections by no less than the government in terms of the Solicitor General, who said this is an elitist concept, had really questioned the maintainability about the same-sex marriage, and really said it was the domain of the legislature and parliament to decide on this matter. But having said that, it's been a very, very engaging, very thought-provoking, those days when the Supreme Court, the five-judge bench was hearing this entire matter, going into every possible aspect in terms of law. One, of course, was about the maintainability. The other about gender, as the government argued, that when you talk about gender, it is what you are biologically, which even prompted the Supreme Court Chief Justice of India to not accept that notion and say that the whole definition of gender has really taken a new ramification, and this is something that we need to go forward. But just for our viewers' information, this is not being touched in terms of the Supreme Court. They're not touching any personal law. They have made it very clear they're not going into that. This is a incremental change. They're just looking at the Special Marriages Act and the Foreign Marriages Act, and we'll have to wait and see whether they will include a clause, interpret it, or leave it completely to the government to decide. If that is the case, then there is really not much of a relief. But what has been demanded by same-sex marriages is, and by those who are in a relationship, that they want it to be legitimized, that they want to get the benefits from the government, and that is why the government, after initially saying this is an urban elitist concept, said a secretary at the cabinet secretary level, a committee will be formed, but we haven't seen or heard about any such meeting that has taken place or the details thereof. So it's in that context that they would like better benefits in terms of Provident Fund and everything else.
Right. So the government has said, has called this an urban elitist view, while Sunil, as you pointed out, the Chief Justice of India during the hearing said that there's no absolute concept of a man and a woman. It doesn't just depend on your genitals. It's far more complex than that. So that was recognized by the Chief Justice of India. But you mentioned one important technicality there, and I want to get into that you mentioned that the government has been saying that this is something that's the Parliament's prerogative. It's not something that the Supreme Court can decide. So what is the prerogative of the Supreme Court in this context? As you mentioned that the Supreme Court will look into the Special Marriages Act, the personal laws will not be changed. Tell us what that means for the common viewer. One possibility is that this could still be left to the Parliament?
So it's a little bit what will be left to Parliament. For example, let's juxtapose this with Article Section 377 and the homosexuality where the government of Supreme Court legitimized it. So far, the government of India has done nothing in that regard to give it in effect. Basically, the Supreme Court's law remains, but have there been any parallel, amendments been done in the Criminal Procedure Code or the latest one? Nothing. They haven't really recognized that. And that is to be noted. So don't expect much from Parliament. As the Bar Council of India and as the government have held, they are dead against the same-sex marriage, as well as, of course, many from the Jamaat-e-Ulama and other parties who have been been opposed to this. They are quite clear that 99% of the population do not accept it. But this has far-reaching implications, as I said. It is about personal rights. And the Supreme Court has always been the crusader of personal rights. Whether they will fulfill that mission today is something that we'll have to wait and watch. It's right now, down to the wire. In the next few, within an hour, 2 hours' time, we'll actually know which way the Supreme Court has decided on this very important personal matter of legitimizing those who are in a relationship in the same sex.
Right. And Sunil, as we've discussed some of the arguments that have been made in the Supreme Court over the hearings in the past, the hearings that have gone on since April this year. So since 2018, ever since same-sex relationships were recognized by the Supreme Court, they were decriminalized by the Supreme Court after a decade-long battle. Since 2018, the next step was legalizing same-sex marriages. That's what the community has been waiting for. So tell us this, that if we talk about the arguments made till now, on the government side, you've mentioned that they've said that this is an urban elitist view. Tell us about that argument from the government and how it has been countered by the petitioners presenting cases of people from the community who come from the lower income stratas and even from rural India who demand this right.
So very well, put. In fact, Justice K.V. Viswanathan, at that time the senior advocate, showed the case of a transgender who really had been thrown out of a house, went with a begging bowl, and there are a number of instances that they have shown that they were speaking out for them. It was not an urban elitist concept. These people have been victimized, and they have really said in categorical terms and assured the Supreme Court that this notion of being an urban elitist is not at all acceptable. It's gone much beyond that. It's not necessarily in the urban elite. And as the Supreme Court pointed out to the government, where is the data to prove this? If you are saying this is an urban elite concept, where have you done? Has the Home Ministry done any study? Has the Government of India done any study? Has it done any survey to say that this is only belongs to the urban elite? And it's in that basis that they really critique the government on that entire concept of it being an urban elitist concept.